Hello, my name is Carole Kimutai. I am many things. I am a mother, I am a sister, I am a friend, I am a storyteller.
Do you think there's a power embedded in journalism?
Yes, I think journalists have superpowers. It's the only profession where you can talk to the president right up to the lowest person in the society.
I want us to journey into your time at Tuco Media.
Tuco offered me a vertical growth because I made my name, I got experience. By the time I was moving to the Standard, I was senior management.
Now, the impression I got is that you were completely exhausted.
Yes, I was totally burnt out.
You seem to be somebody who likes to live and work on the edge.
I would say I like thrill. I like variety.
Carole Kimutai is a pioneering digital media strategist in Kenya, but first and foremost, a storyteller, a journalist whose love and passion for imagination and the written word manifested early in life and blossomed. Welcome to the Power Panel podcast, Carole. So I want to start this interview quoting something that you said about yourself, because it really intrigued me. And let me read it. In high school, my father founded an underground school magazine. I would write stories on printing paper, staple, and give to my dad to photocopy for me so I could sell to my fellow students. Now, who is this girl who understood triangulation at this age? You understood the connection between wonderful stories well told, a captive audience, and monetization. What environment creates a girl like this? Tell me a little bit about your childhood and what inspired you to be this innovative at this age.
Wow, I didn't think you'd fish out that story. But it's a turning point for me because I thank the home I grew up in. There were no limitations. And the person who created that environment is my dad. So you could be anything you wanted to be. And the most ironical thing is he was a policeman. But he always supported everything that I did because I happened to be a daddy's girl. So I would come up with all these ideas and he would support. So he'd come home from work carrying newspapers, and I would be receiving him at the door when he'd come from work. And he'd give me the paper and tell me, can you read for me this newspaper? And I would find myself reading very many stories. And then religiously at 7 o'clock, or if he came after 7 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, we'd sit down and watch the news. And as we watched the news, I would ask him, who is that? And he would tell me that is this minister, this is the other guy. And I found that very fascinating. And that's what got me to this journey. And when I would scribble, I would tell him, okay, I've written these stories. I've drawn these cartoons. Please photocopy for me. And he'd photocopy for me. And that's what I would give my colleagues in high school.
You started to build a career as a journalist by going to the Kenya Institute of Mass Communications, and then you proceeded to read journalism at university and at master's level. Now, I want to ask you two broad questions before I get into your career. Do you think there's a power embedded in journalism? And if you do you think as a woman journalist, you deploy that power differently for men?
Yes, I think journalists have superpowers. And it's the only profession where you can talk to the president right up to the lowest person in the society. You have access to them. You don't need to beg or to queue. You just call and say, I'm a journalist, I work for this and this. And you'll get an audience. People will pick up your call. So there's power there. There's power in the fact that I can collect stories from anyone I want. And the fact that I am a woman means there's some intuition that I bring to it. Perhaps I want to understand the story behind the story. So I like to uncover much more than what people present. And I think that's what I bring to the table.
So, in your journey, this is my second broad question. You seem to be somebody who likes to live and work on the edge. Because you seem to have worked in very high pressure, high octane environments, and you seem to have taken risks as you advanced your career. Um, where do you get a risk and stress tolerance from?
Now that you have asked that, I think growing up with my dad contributes a lot. There were no boundaries. My mom was more the strict one, as mothers are often are. Do this, wake up like this, behave like this. But my dad, there were no rules. As long as you're not breaking the law, as long as you're having fun at what you're doing, go for it. And from a very young age, you tell me, are you enjoying what you're doing? Yes, then it's okay. But I think from my mom's side, we had to help with the house chores, sleep at a particular time, speak like this, dress like this. And little girls, you're told how to greet people, go to church. We used to pray with her before we go to sleep. So there was a schedule. But with my dad, there was none. And I loved that. I loved that he was a people's person. I loved that he was a disruptor. I loved that he would come on a Friday and tell my mom, I'm taking the kids to Eldoret. And in the morning, we would go. We've not packed. We would just go. So I would say that is a foundation. I would not say high pressure jobs. I would say I like thrill. I hate days that are similar. I would get really bored. I'm the kind of person who likes to wake up and know that I'm walking into a day where there are things that are different and new and exciting. So boring for me really, really bores me. So I would come to the office. I want a meeting. I want to go and see client. I want to go to the field. So I like variety.
So, you're somebody who likes to live your life in Technicolor, basically. I want us to journey into your time at Tuco Media. Now, you've been celebrated for being instrumental in setting up Kenya's first viral mobile news website called tuco.co.ke, and you were its first managing editor. Now, this is a pioneering role, and Tuco was a disruptor in the market. You're providing alternative content to audiences. I mean, you were breaking new ground. So I'm curious to ascertain how this journey began. A LinkedIn post and a meeting in a bar.
I was a publishing editor at the Management magazine run by the Kenya Institute of Management. I was there for about 7 years. And I had also been trying to get them to set up a website. But back then, people had not seen the importance of digital media and websites. So we were heavily magazine. But I also was a contributing blogger for a website in South Africa called bizcommunity.co.za. And I would write stories from Kenya, news pieces, specifically business stories, and they would publish them on Biz Community. So fast forward, I finished my education, and I'm going through LinkedIn, and I see this advertisement on LinkedIn by this guy, and he's Ukrainian. I think he was Ukrainian, half Russian. I found out later. And he was asking for editor-in-chief for a new website that was going to be launched in Kenya. It wasn't even there. So I actually inboxed him and said I was interested. And he asked me to give him my email address. I did. I sent it on email. And then he emailed me and told me, send me a CV. I sent in my CV. And he said, we'll contact you. We are planning to come to Kenya. We'll have a meeting. So I think it was a month or two after they came to Kenya, young tech guys. And we had a meeting in a restaurant. It was even the intercon at the bar. And we're having a
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And so this guy, he's in a t-shirt and he removes this paper and says, we want to set up a website here. Look at this logo. What do you think? Is it a nice logo? And I look at it and I say, it's boring. If you're setting up something in Kenya and you want to target the youth, I think you need to have some national colors in it. And that time it was when Alfred Mutua was spokesperson and he had this thing of Najivunia kwa Mkenya. And I told him, we have this thing that the government spokesperson is talking about, the pride of Kenya. So I think we should have Kenyan colors. And that's why the logo at the beginning was black, green, and red, and white, based out of the Kenyan colors. And so he said, okay, fine. So we are starting this thing called tuco.co.ke. What does Tuco mean? And I said, Tuco is Swahili. It means we are here. And he asked me, do you think Kenyan youth, young people read the news? I said no, because it's boring and most of the newspapers have the same news. And I said, it could make sense if we made the stories more interesting and readable for people on mobile devices. And yeah, that's how it started. By the time I got to my office, I had an offer, which was quite shocking. So in the evening, I called my friends and said, I have this offer. I had a friend who used to work at Cadbury then, very good friend of mine, marketing director. He's Nigerian. And I'm like, I've gotten this offer. What do you think? And he's like, okay, think about the pros and cons. You're leaving this job with a pension, with medical. And these guys were just giving me money. And everything else I was to figure it myself. And it was 3 times what I was earning. And they needed a response by morning. So I really had to come back with a response. Yeah, so the rest is history.
That is very, very shocking for me. I mean, listen, very rarely do we deal with people from Eastern Europe in this country. These tattoo-clad individuals meet you at a bar, give you an offer, and within 24 hours, you have changed your career, you've changed your perspective, and you're getting on with it. I mean, I am astounded by that risk-taking propensity that you have. It's phenomenal. Combining daring and learning.
I saw it as an opportunity to make money while learning digital, because that's where I learned everything I know about digital by getting paid.
Okay.
Because the company is called Genesis Technology. So they're a tech company, very big in Eastern Europe and the US. So my colleagues were developers, they were web guys, they were geeks, because part of my orientation was going to Ukraine, Kiev, where the head office was. And you go into this room and you have all these guys who have done big websites, big dating sites. They've done algorithms. And you're having a discussion about audiences in Kenya. They're asking you about what people like. And they have all these heavy accents. They've never been to Africa, because they were also setting up in Nigeria. So I was there with a colleague from Nigeria who was also editor-in-chief, fairly new, but he had worked with them for about 6 months. So just learning and being exposed to what I call the new world, where now people are right now, for me was the deal maker, because I knew I would never go to any university and they would teach me that. And we built it from ground up. We looked for the office. I hired people. They taught me how to hire. I learned performance management because we'd report which we've done every day.
Building from the ground up in the trenches. You describe this time as being in the trenches. Yes? you built from scratch. You had a steep learning curve, and it's and you transitioned from an institution that was quite rigid, a quasi-government institution that's bureaucratic, to this place that was fairly elastic, fast moving. What strategies did you use to adapt to that environment?
I would not say it's a strategy. I think it's just a personality I have. You throw me somewhere, as long as I'm enjoying it, I will swim.
So this was a high growth environment.
Exactly.
All right. Now, in that growth, did you transition from being a manager to a leader? Did you cross the Rubicon in terms of how you perceived yourself in your management of people and power in that organization?
Yes, I did. And also managing and leading across different cultures, because you're talking about Africa and Eastern Europe. You're talking about hiring people who are mainstream journalists like myself and encouraging them to be open-minded, because there are a few people who couldn't hack the culture that we had. They dropped off. We worked long hours, and Eastern Europeans are very, very clear on their feedback. There's no gray area. If it's bad, they tell you it's bad. And in Kenya, if I want to tell you something, I sort of go around, but for them, there's no wasting time. If the story is not per standard, you get the feedback on the spot. If you're not pulling your weight, they actually tell you you're not pulling your weight, and therefore you're not a fit in the team, so we have to let you go. So I also learned that leadership, you have to have those hard conversations, especially when it's about performance. I also learned that you have to ensure that people see that you're tracking their performance. You appreciate the value that they bring to their business and the value that they bring to the product. So feedback was very, very integral. The other third thing is we are a team. So as a leader, you're also expected to pull your weight. So pull it, and the team around you is watching, because we also used to have 360 appraisals. So your appraisal appraised upwards and downwards and sideways. So everyone around you really matters. Yeah.
Carole stayed at Tuco for just 3 years, but in that time, she made an indelible mark. So how did Carole and her colleagues build Tuco, and how did this affect her leadership?
So in those 3 years, we started a website that people thought was a joke. They thought we were coming in and trying to take on the big boys and trying to prove people that we could do it. So we started from publishing, we'd say 15 stories a day, to publishing close to 100 stories in a day, to doing video content, to being the fastest growing mobile app on mobile phones. So what we did is we partnered with a particular brand of a phone in Kenya, a partnership that was 2.5 years. Every phone that was bought in Kenya had that Tuco app. And so there were several levels of phones, and we targeted phones in urban and rural areas. So you'd find that even your own grandmother who has a smartphone had a Tuco app that was pre-installed. And anytime we published a story, it would pop on the phone. So that's how the popularity grew of the website. We packaged the stories in what we call snackable ways. So instead of, doing the newspaper way, we knew that people on mobile scroll and they don't have time. So we do some what we call viral headlines and put them immediately on website, and what we call push notification. So the push notification would go on phone. So the stories were actually packaged and written for mobile phone users. So yes, there was a website, but most of our web readers were like 30% of the traffic. Majority, 70% to 80%, were actually mobile users. So we started doing news on the go, breaking news on the go, explaining news, and explaining the breaking news. And we played on the human emotion of FOMO, fear of missing out. And because everyone had a phone, they wanted to know what was going on, and they wanted to feel educated and to comment and to give commentaries, as you're seeing now on socials. That's the role we played then. And of course, we took quite an audience from the mainstream media outlets. We'd actually watch news in the office and actually write stories from the news, but packaged in a viral way.
Okay, so you caused some upheaval in the market. All right. Now, with that upheaval, there must have been new tools that you were using to be able to have that kind of impact, especially related to data collection and data analysis. To what extent was that critical to the success of Tuco, and how did it change you as a leader? This reliance on analytics, on algorithms, and so on. How does it change you as a leader when you have this alignment between data, leadership, and goals?
Yes, very good question. So data was at the heart of our operations and decision making. So we'd measure and see what stories resonate with audiences, who those audiences are, gender, age, geographical location, because you can actually see where your readers are inside Kenya, outside Kenya, and even devices. That's why I've talked about, we knew that a lot of our audiences were mobile users. So we knew human interest stories did very, very well. Celebrity stories did extremely well. And we would also track in terms of readership, would track in terms of time spent in the story. And so we started adding photographs in the stories because we realized the more photos you add, the more people spend on that story. We started doing A/B testing on headlines. If this headline doesn't work, we change it and do on this and see whether it works. We also started tracking when people were reading most. So we had a team we call night shift team, people who worked in the night, because we realized there was a constituency of people who would read stories in the evening and early morning. So we had people working from home very early in the morning as others got to the office. That's the power of data.
So, what was the average age of your team?
I would say I was the oldest first.
Mm-hmm.
My 30s, in my mid 30s. I would say average age was 26, because the instruction was for us to hire young, right out of campus, 1 or 2 years out. And the logic was we would train them in our ways of working.
Mm-hmm.
They come, they are raw. We can mold them into what we want them to be.
All right. So, when you look back to those 3 years, to the person who was that manager at KIM, and to this person who was the managing editor of Tuco, there was a transformation. What were the best takeaways for you as a person and as a leader?
I think what I take away then to date is power of risking. Actually, a lot of people who I asked about my decision to move from KIM to Tuco discouraged me. And they were like, you're leaving a stable job. But I knew at KIM I had stayed for 7 years, and the ceiling was there, and I needed a new challenge. I had done my best, and so when the opportunity came, I grabbed it. But I had also interviewed at the Nation, and they had never hired me. So really, I was like, okay, fine. Since the Nation is closed, I might as well now look outward. And I think that was one of the things that really pushed me, because I needed to prove a point that I can make a mark. I don't need to go into mainstream and start from junior reporter up. And of course, newsrooms, you really have to work your way up. By the time you're up, you're probably in your late 40s. But Tuco offered me a vertical growth because I made my name, got experience. By the time I was moving to the Standard, I was senior management. I was presenting board papers. So that was what I'd say a risk that paid off really, really well, paid off financially, paid off skills wise, and finally got me to work for a media house, the Standard Group, that is actually bigger than the Nation in terms of platforms. They had newspapers, radio station, TV stations, and websites that were really, really big. So I think for me, it paid out.
But you left Tuco, you say after 3 years. And in my research about you, I read an article where you indicated that you took a sabbatical in between moving from Tuco to the Standard. Now, the impression I got is that you were completely exhausted, and that you took that break to reflect. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, I was totally burnt out, like building from scratch, working. I think we were working 18 hours. I had to supervise guys working day shift, evening shift. We worked weekends. It was crazy. And doing reports. It was just, yeah, it was crazy. I think I used to tell people I used to sleep like 3-4 hours in a day. But I was driven by adrenaline because for me, I'm very competitive. We had to be number one. And the fact that you can see your growth gave me more oomph. And the support from the head office was there. The support and the pressure was there. And of course, you grow and people start copying you, which puts a lot of pressure because now people are seeing what you're doing and it's working, so they are copying. So now you have to rethink a different strategy. Losing team members because of the high pressure. The people who had gotten from mainstream could also not cope. So I was constantly having to hire and look out for talent. Managing teams and ensuring that the platform is optimized, giving feedback to the team back in Kiev was critical. So during the day you work and then in the evening you have to respond and do reports. I spoke about hiring people. We were a revolving door. People would come and after 4 months, they're like, I can't do this. They leave. So I was on a constant hiring mode. A constant mode of ensuring that people are working. So performance management. And you're also checking what your competitors are doing because now the mainstream media started waking up and sending us demand letters and saying you guys are taking our content and poaching some people who would come to work with us thinking that they would go back and help. So by the time I was done, I was like, it was just, yeah. And yeah, I was really, really tired.
You know, there's there's a way in which women get burnt out in the work that they do. And I'm just thinking about Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who, before her term ended, decided to just resign because she had no more fuel in the tank. That's what she said. Do you think as women approach tasks, we go all in, we give it everything, and therefore we burn out? I mean, very rarely do you hear of men who walk away from jobs because they're burnt out. What is it? I mean, as a woman who has done this, what gives you the courage to just say, it's enough?
Yes, I think we put our heart, souls, and everything in the ring. We give it our very best. But also, by the time we are done, we are done. So there's no gray area. And you know that you can't, there's nothing more left to give because you go in full and you're giving and giving and giving until your body and mind and soul is like, it's done. But I also think we are honest kind of people. We tend to know when we're not giving. So I think it's a superpower women have. Um, and sometimes it can be interpreted for weakness that you have to be a warrior through and through. But sometimes it's important to stop and recharge so that you come back stronger.
As we take this short power break, we ask that you subscribe to the Power Panel podcast. Let's work together to expand the Power Panel community. Visit our website, birdsongafrica.com, and follow us on social media to plug into the Power Panel network. Email your thoughts to hello@birdsongafrica.com. When we return, we unveil the next stage of this journey. This is the Power Panel podcast. Interesting that this tired person, exhausted, would now go and work with the Standard. That is a huge media house, many departments, has TV, radio. You have this project of digital transformation. The work portfolio is triple, maybe. How does that make sense? One would have thought that you'd have gone to a smaller organization, but you actually chose a bigger challenge where the pressure was going to be maybe twice the load. What was the reasoning?
I think, remember, I had been rejected, I had failed in several interviews or not been picked several interviews at the nation. So I needed to get back and prove a point.
So has that been your dream? Has it been your dream to work with one of these big legacy media houses? Is that the fulfillment of being a journalist for you?
For me, it was being in a position where I could make a difference. Because most of the jobs that I had applied for were like managerial jobs, leading projects, because I believed I had something I could bring to the table and just didn't get the opportunity. So when the opportunity presented itself on the Standard, I grabbed it. And they were not clear about their digital strategy. And for me, that's what I had breathed, I had lived. I mean, I could swim in it. And fortunately, the environment was very conducive and very supportive. I had very, very good bosses who allowed me to create my own path, to build my team. I even changed the way of hiring at the Standard and ensured that I had people based out of certain characteristics that I was looking for based on what we needed to do. So I think it was a God-sent opportunity, because at the Standard, it gave me a bigger opportunity for impact. Everything that I had dreamt of doing and learned, I got the opportunity to do it. And at that time, we were expanding. Every product we were launching had to go digital. So I interfaced with quite a number of people. And like I said, I had very good bosses. One of my bosses was Joseph Odindo. He'd worked in the nation for 35 years. So for me, it was just everything came together. And he held my hand. He was and has been a mentor to me.
All right. I want to consider this idea of transition and what makes it work and what makes it fail. And I want you to listen to one of the women leaders that we interviewed last year, called Waholo Kenowendo. She's a minister in Botswana. And I wanted you to listen to what she says about this idea of transitioning and timing.
You must understand timing. Everything hinges on timing. Know when to stay, know when to leave. Most importantly, know when to listen, know when to speak.
Now, as she describes the art of timing, it seems that it is both a factor of intuition and a factor of skill. So as you were transitioning, what was your gut feeling and what was the skill you were deploying?
I like what she said, understanding timing, very important. I tend to work logically and rely on my gut feeling. For me, I say, as long as I'm at peace, it's time out. And that's very important for me, that when I feel that it's over, it's over. And even if I consult, I actually know what I want to do. I just want to get different voices. So she's very right. But the outside voices are now what bring in the logic and help you interrogate, or help me interrogate, the gut feeling. And those voices are the ones which will tell you, have you considered this? Have you considered the other? What will people think? And listening is important at this point. So I'll listen, I'll put those points down, but at the end of it, I will make the decision. And I am those kinds of people who I'll listen to everything. I'll write it down. I'll have a meeting with myself. I'll do the pros and cons. But I also subscribe to the school of thought that being uncomfortable is where the right decision lies. So anyone who tells you to be comfortable could be misleading you. So I will probably go the opposite way, because that's where I think you'll discover excitement and adventure, than staying on a path that is predictable, that you can control. I think that's boring. Life is quite short, and living it in a way that you want to control and feel safe. I think at the end of it, you'd want to say, I lived this experience and I said, wow, than living experiences of what people are prescribing for you. So that's how I look at
I
it.
think you're really proving my point that you like to live on the edge. Really? I think you are. Now, let's look at your this experience of yours at the Standard Media Group. a huge, important media house, not only in Kenya, but I think throughout our region. I think the oldest is Standard, the oldest newspaper in Kenya. So, you went into an institution with a lot of history, a lot of tradition, a lot of, confidence. I want to know, in this transitioning, how you managed to mold and panel beat yourself into this person who could remain creative in this environment that I'm sure was a little bit stifling for you after having had that elasticity at Tuco for 3 years.
Yes. So back to the minister from Botswana. I think timing is important. So I joined the Standard Group 2 months before election. And so I got in and I had the opportunity to sort of influence the election coverage strategy. So that was an opportunity for me to come in during a high pressure time and work with people during high pressure. And fortunately, the timing was good because they were onboarding ideas that were going to ensure that we were quick in news cycle and reporting unique angles of the election coverage. I think that's the year where the election was annulled. Then we had another presidential election in October. So I came in at the heat of the moment. And during that time is normally a good time to sort of rearrange the furniture because everyone is looking to compete and the country is charged and everyone needs news. So I can say the timing was perfect. I came in and people were like, okay, what do we do here? How do we do this? We need a new this studio. How do we ensure that we are getting feedback from audiences, live tweeting, etc., etc. So that timing, I could say, thankfully worked. And towards the end of the year now, elections are over, October, the heat is there. We are now planning for the next year. And we used to plan earlier so that by end of November, the board has approved everything. So it was an opportunity now for me to discuss with my bosses on some of the ideas I wanted to roll out and improve. So that's one. Two is I've said I am very adaptable. So I go in and I found it was a learning opportunity. And as long as an environment offers me an opportunity to learn, I am game. I'm going to learn. I'm going to swim. I am going to put my best foot forward. So it was another school where I was learning. I was now interacting with teams from radio. I was interacting with teams from TV. I was interacting with teams from print. So I ended up being friends with people across the board. I was learning. I was not getting bored.
But from what you're saying to me, it's like you're a bit of a star there, huh? A bit of a ray of light. What happens to you when you have people shine an aura of indispensability around you, an aura of amazement around you? How does that affect your ability to perform and to control your ego?
I think I was viewed as an expert because in the newsroom, people had like 20 years experience, 18 years experience. People had covered post-election violence. So people had their stars as well. They had their stripes. But I found myself coming in, giving value to something new, and I had a case study to provide. So it gave me confidence. Secondly, in the newsroom, it's very highly male charged. So I always was the only female in the room. So it also gave me confidence that I was able to represent women and women journalists in the room, but also technically, because I understood algorithms, I understood audience insights, I understood. So in that space, you would not beat me. And I capitalized on that. Third is because I tend to ask, I'm very analytical. I ask a lot of questions. So I prod. I talk to anybody because I want to understand.
So basically, it wasn't so much your star power, it was the power of your competency. And that's what gave you legitimacy and room for maneuver. Would you agree?
Yes. You're very right. You're spot on. And that's the philosophy I carry wherever I go, that I bring some technical expertise to something, and I add value at that space. And so I earn the place I am at, or the seat I'm sitting on, because I'm bringing something.
In some of your writings and memoirs about this particular period at the Standard, you allude to pressure, and you say this: the pressure, oh, the pressure. For a legacy media house, all eyes were always on the digital teams. You are always on the spotlight. Everyone looks up to you for answers. Everything is measurable. It never stops.
Yes, pressure is good, and it's, for me, it's awesome from that perspective. I would say there's negative pressure. The pressure in terms of people expect you to be fast and perfect. So if there's breaking news and you've not released that breaking news, they think you're wasting time, that you are slow. There's a problem. Once in a while, we got some things wrong and we had to delete. And I was of the school of thought, we are not going to delete, we are going to apologize. And in a newsroom, a correction is the most painful thing for an editor. And even in newspapers, by the time a correction is done, you're almost pulling teeth. So there was pressure that way in an environment where mistakes are actually looked at in a way that people want to hide mistakes, because society says journalists are perfect, because we are the voice of the voiceless and we expose things. Expectations were very, very high, extremely high.
So you, in this high pressure situation, you can't work alone. You have to work with teams. But there's also another aspect that always insinuates itself into team building, into Pacific work environments. And this is politics. And I want you to listen to Boholo Kenawendo again.
Sometimes, even in your team that says yes to your faith and then doesn't actually comply, two-faced people, we're navigating politics now. Office politics is actually part of the biggest challenges that a leader must learn to face, to deal with. There's a point where you must put your foot down and say, no, I am in charge here.
So tell me about how you manage office politics.
Not too well. It stresses me. I know it's part of life, but it's really, really stressing. And yes, all the organizations I worked in, there was office politics. And I don't know if I've done well at that. I try not to involve myself in people's businesses, but sometimes there are things that require you to find out the behind the scenes drama that is going on so that you know how to present yourself. So I would call it more of lobbying and advocacy, knowing the people on your side, the people against you, knowing the sound of the river, what is the vibe, knowing if it's someone who is against you, whether to lobby, to go and say, I know we've disagreed on this. Can we work together? And yes, there are people who are two-faced. On one side, they are white. On the other side, they are black. So being intuitive becomes something that you really have to cultivate, the sixth sense, what we call emotional intelligence. But yes, office politics is one of the things I see when I grow up. I need to get a degree in how to navigate office politics.
Now, I want to ask you about failure, mistakes, slipping, falling. In the kind of work that you were doing at the Standard and the work that you do now, it's creative work. So there are many iterations before you get things right. Because it's a fast-moving environment, it's easy for errors to occur. It seems to me that you have to begin as a leader to kind of become comfortable in failure and to try and reinterpret what failure is, and to see solutions for failure as power. Now, I'd like to know how you reached that place of being able to manage failure without collapsing.
Yes, I think it's how you look at failure intentionally. So failure is part of life. So the first thing I do and tell myself is you have to be your own cheerleader and accept that things work out and things don't. There are things that work out and there are many more things that don't work out. I prescribe to stoicism. So things that I can control, I will control. But things that I cannot control, I will not bother with them. So in every situation, I will look at the things I was able to control and celebrate and say that I did my best. And then those things that I was not able to control and which led to failure of this, there was nothing I was ever going to do that was ever going to change. So that's how, from a philosophical perspective, I look at failure. It's part of life. And it's how you recover after you fall off the horse. It's how you quickly get up and dust and go ahead. So encourage yourself, be your own cheerleader first, but also surround yourself with voices that are encouraging. And have what I call a board of directors that you can quickly call and say, oh my God, I have messed up here. And one or two voices actually helps you to wake up faster and give you energy to go forward. The challenge we have is sometimes we have people who are wet blankets around us, who when you call, they form a Book of Lamentations choir and they get you deep into the pit. But it's important to have one or two people who when you call, this is a person who is just going to pump you with life, even if you know that you messed up and messed up really bad. So that gives you some oxygen to start breathing, to get up, to dust yourself, to start walking. And then your own self-esteem and self-awareness is very important. So for me, that's how I look at it. Things that you can control, well and good. Things that you cannot control, don't bother with them, because there's really nothing you can do.
You're now in a new work environment, a global communication company called Person. And how has that experience been? Now that you've worked in the legacy media, you've worked in the digital space in Kenya, and now engaging at the global level. What has been the learning curve there?
Curve has been very steep.
Again?
Yes, very steep. It is a Tuco kind of experience here, because it's more of communication strategy, and so there's lots to learn, which is making the work really enjoyable. And the challenge here is you run things like a business. So you're an entrepreneur. For me, it's a learning environment. Very interesting. We have AI here. The tech here is next level. And I have an amazing boss who has thrown me to the deep end.
Just where you like to be.
Yes.
Okay.
Thrown me to the sharks.
Mhm.
And again, he accommodates mistakes.
All right. So again, you got the timing right. Do you think?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
All right. So, last question. You have encountered power and leadership now for, I think, a substantive period of time, and you've developed as a strong voice in the media space and as a pathfinder for many who follow behind you. What would you say about power and leadership? What is your power mantra?
My power mantra is use power as a source of light and for good. Use it not for selfish reasons, but to empower people around you. So if I have the power to assist somebody, I will actually go out of my way to assist. Not because I expect something from you, but because I think it's the right thing to do.
All right. Use power as a source of
Light, yes, and uplifting those around you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Carole. I hope you've
Thank you.
enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. I've learned a great deal from you, and we wish you well in all your future endeavors. And thank you so much for joining us on the Power Panel podcast.
Thank you. I've enjoyed myself, and I look forward to listening to more podcasts from you.
This is the Power Panel podcast, Echoes.